Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. We have a very exciting Cyber Monday show planned, so we're going to dive right in after this. Alrighty, so I'm going to go ahead and bring on Makeshift, the co-host. Hey, man, how are you doing?
What's going on, dude?
Man, the beard is so beautiful today.
Dude, and I just put some like butter in that like has like a cinnamon scent to it. Oh man,
Ooh.
it's like a fireball, right? Just all up in here. Just
Oh yeah. Get the fall, I was about
that's
to say
exactly it
flavors,
too.
but that's a weird description for a beard. But hey, here we go. Well, we have an absolute, awesome individual here for our interview today. It is Parker Daudt. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Caleb?
Doing great. Well, man, I feel like we have so much to talk about. You've been hosting the Twitter Spaces. You have Information Security Collective. You've got the newsletter. I mean, where to start? You've talked to so many just absolutely, excellent cybersecurity professionals. What kind of got you into that, and how is that? How have you been able to sustain that over time?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of the collective, so that nonprofit, the Twitter Spaces, all are kind of just off the cuff. The nonprofit really started just on a 4-hour drive. I decided that I wanted to make that kind of from initial conception to turning it into like a tangible object. Really took place. Getting everything ironed out just maybe a few hours. Um, Getting all of the stuff in a row took a couple months. And then again, kind of like the Twitter Spaces, it was just an idea I decided I wanted to do one day and kind of made it a reality.
Yeah, it's been super awesome, and the conversations that have been had have been very just excellent and helpful to sit through. But I think there's definitely been some that have been just good and important conversations that need to happen, and so it's awesome that you've been facilitating that. And I meant to ask this off the top, so that's on me. I'm getting out of order here. But for people that may not know you, do you mind just kind of going through kind of your background in cybersecurity as well as Information Security Collective and some of the Twitter Spaces?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I got my bachelor's in 2017 in physics. So decided to almost immediately make that change to pursue a master's in cybersecurity. So I did that degree, started in 2017, graduated 2018, um, went overseas for that, did a bit of just immediately jumped into consulting work. Um, did that overseas for about a year. Moved back here to the States, did about some 9 months of internal, like in-house pen testing, and then immediately just shifted back into consulting, which I do now. So unlike a lot of people, I kind of just jumped feet first into cybersecurity with a degree, and then right into a job doing pen testing.
Oh wow.
That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I mean, going from physics to cybersecurity, I mean, I haven't, I'm not a big science guy, but physics are it's so fascinating, and it's kind of one of those things that I really wish that I, got into while I was in college. What kind of prompted that, interest in cybersecurity and that transition for your graduate degree?
Yeah, so I got into like computer science courses during getting my degree. So I really found an interest in that. Started pursuing a little bit of like coding, so even just basic like C++ and a little bit of Python and JavaScript. Um, got really exposed to the security aspect through like Hack5 and a few different YouTube channels. Really found it like that I was really interested and passionate about that. Um, and then yeah, just off the cuff, made the switch, decided I wanted to pursue that career path rather than doing anything with the physics degree. Maybe I started off wanting to do engineering, but uh, the universe said do cybersecurity instead. So
It tends to have a wonderful little nudging hand towards that way once you start heading that.
yeah.
How have you enjoyed it? I mean, thus far, and I mean, you mentioned you went consulting, then stint with pen testing, then back into consulting. What was that transition like?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I went overseas. I went to Ireland for my master's program, originally from Idaho. Uh, so started doing an internship as I wrapped up the degree, and so really got exposed to kind of the consultancy-led pen tests, doing a lot of like web app. Really enjoyed being able to work on a lot of different like technologies for different companies. Moving back in, wanted to try my hand at doing just like internal for a single company, which I really enjoyed. Um, but then made that switch back just to kind of again have that kind of every week might be a different test for different technologies or like test types. So you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, I'm kind of getting into consulting here in the near future, so that's exciting to hear that it's kind of the different things every day or every week, different
Yeah.
pace. Um, with Information Security Collective, what kind of prompted getting that started, and what's been your favorite aspect of having that so far?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it was really just like I was saying, on a couple hour long drive, decided I noticed I guess I saw what I thought was missing in kind of the industry, a way for people who either have really no experience and want to make the kind of jump into cybersecurity like I did, or people trying to maybe upskill or transfer in from a different industry. Um, I just kind of didn't see a place for people to do that. Um, and so I just decided to make one. I wanted to give somebody like me a place to either get exposed to the different tools and techniques that you use, maybe like a scholarship to go attend a different conference, get exposure that way and network, or a place to just collaborate with other people. So, yeah, so I just made one.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say it seems kind of very similar to what we do with Republic of Hackers. We are, essentially just the Discord, but when people come in and they're like, oh, like I might, and of course everybody wants to jump in and do the hacking and the pen testing and everything, but then like we bring up conferences maybe that they've never heard of before that aren't so much pen testing focused, but they might be more like blue team focused. And we're like, hey, like maybe go do this, or watch somebody stream, when they're doing like some of the range force labs, to just kind of give them that exposure to other things outside of pen testing, because it seems like that's like the entry level for everybody. And it's like, well, hold on, there's a whole there's a whole universe of other things you can go do. Don't just focus solely on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people kind of jump in and it's like, oh, I want to do bug bounty hunting. So I'm going to just start there and kind of forget that there's a lot of fundamentals that you kind of should learn, not necessarily that you need to learn. And that also InfoSec does have a lot of other um, types of roles, whether you're doing blue team or red team. And I think a lot of that just gets overshadowed by a lot of stuff you see on like Twitter or LinkedIn, all the big bug bounty wins.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. And then, you have the newsletter where you'll feature different people. And I think that that's super cool. What are some of the, coolest journeys that you've seen from people, through that, and how has that inspired you in your own, cybersecurity career?
Yeah, so I've seen people who kind of make the shift. I think one of the most impressive was someone who went from like being a ballerina dancer into getting into cybersecurity. Just something almost entirely completely unrelated, making that move, and it's just really kind of humbling and amazing to see the different journeys people have, and that there really is no like one set path on getting into cybersecurity. You can literally just do anything before and make the change, or come from any background and just start.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of on that note, with the concept of gatekeeping to kind of funnel people through those gates, right? And try in a way it kind of requires, or it it requires someone to try to convince people that there is like that one way, or the, select few ways that, if you don't go through those pathways, then, you're not in cybersecurity. And I think that's one of the things that I love about your Twitter spaces is that, you're really attacking that head on. You're trying to initiate these conversations with, all kinds of professionals in the industry, and kind of show that, there's a million ways to make it happen. And you're getting after the gatekeeping. In that process, have you, gotten a lot of like positive feedback from people that are wanting to get into the industry, that they're, kind of noticing that? And then, have you seen any resistance from people that, are, I guess, gatekeepers themselves?
No, mostly I've seen really good, positive kind of feedback. A lot of people seem to be really enjoying the Twitter Spaces, which I'm really happy to hear. But I do see people who are like, "Oh, how do I get started?" And then you do get a lot of people that are like gatekeeping, and it's like, "Oh, well, you need to start doing this role, and then maybe after a few years you transition to something else, and then maybe a few years even later, then you can do pen testing, and that's how you like that's the only real way to become a pen tester." And it's just like I didn't start out that way. I immediately became a pen tester. No.
Yeah.
But mostly everybody's been really positive, and it's been a lot of good feedback.
Yeah. Eric Bellardo says, "Who wants to be an infosec? Not me." Yeah, me neither. I don't know. Do you want to be an infosec?
No, not at all.
What's InfoSec?
I don't know. I mean, can you hack my Facebook?
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's super cool. Do you have anything here real quick?
No, I mean, it's just I have to say, as somebody that, not too long ago was trying to find my way through InfoSec and everything, and obviously I was looking for people and groups and everything to kind of help me, find my path and kind of show me a couple of the ropes and not, not gatekeep me. So to know that you're creating something to kind of help prevent that stuff and to really bring more people into this space is really awesome. If there's anybody in the chat or anybody watching this later on, if you're trying to find your way into this industry, Republic of Hackers or Information Security Collective, man, seriously, these things are out there to help you guys honestly get into this industry. I mean, you constantly keep hearing about, oh, there's like 3 million jobs or whatever in InfoSec and cybersecurity that aren't being filled. And it's like, let's bring some people in here. Let's bring the ballerinas. Let's bring the WWE wrestlers like Phil Wiley. Let's bring in anybody that we can to really flush out this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Tish Harper here actually. Dang it, I hit the wrong button. I'm trying to pin the comment here. My bad. It says, for anyone that's new to InfoSec, what's the number one thing that we need to be aware of? That's a good one.
Parker, I'm gonna let you take this, buddy.
I definitely think the thing you need to be kind of most aware of is like everybody started somewhere. It's like nobody came in knowing everything. 9 times out of 10 people today still use Google for something they don't know. They might look up a tutorial. They might look up someone else's payload. So, yeah, you don't need to know everything, and anybody that tells you otherwise is just messing with you.
The like, need to know everything. That's so important because that's definitely like, there's a lot of examples that you're gonna. I mean, at least on InfoSec Twitter, at least that you can see where people are like, you do need to be a subject matter expert. But I mean, I've like had the privilege to be able to meet several subject matter experts in like not just cybersecurity, and they will be the first to tell you they don't know everything. Like, it's kind of like, I mean, to your point, like you don't need to know everything. It's a constant journey. Tish follows up with number one myth, and this is a good one too.
I think the number one myth for me was that like you have to have a degree or you have to have a certification.
Yeah.
I know a lot of places still keep pushing this, and I know even me personally, like when people ask me like, hey, I'm starting out, what should I do? I always tend to lean towards going after a cert because for a lot of them, your A plus, your net plus, your sec plus, whatever, they're very introductory. They cover a lot of the fundamentals, the basics, stuff that really gives you some base knowledge to then turn around and get a job that is either on the pathway to getting into cybersecurity, excuse me, or actually getting into cybersecurity. Um, but there's a ton of people that it's like if you can do some studying on your own, you don't have to have any certifications. I mean, I'm sure anybody that just wants to hop in to try hack me or hack the box or anything and go through all of those machines and all of those boxes could turn around and find a pen test job. And just by showing, hey, I've completed all of these. I mean, somebody's going to look at that. I mean, if I was an employer and I saw that somebody went through and completed all or most of those boxes, I'd be like, okay, they don't necessarily need to go back and get their net plus or anything. They know enough networking to be able to hack some of these boxes, and whatever they don't know, we can show them. It's called on the job training. Something that I think a lot of companies kind of undervalue.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Um, yeah, I know, just trying to help people find their first infosec job. A lot of HRs are still looking for those degrees or those certs, but I do think they miss out on some really good candidates who might not check every single box.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, this is a good question by Andrew, just kind of like establishing definitions and defining variables here. So for the new folks, what is a gatekeeper?
Parker?
Big question. Big
Yeah,
question.
big question.
Big.
I mean, for me, someone who's a gatekeeper is like, oh, you need to do the same thing I did. You need to suffer in the same way I did, follow the same path I did to get into XYZ, because that's the way. So, and anybody who tells you that like what you're doing is not the right way or what you're doing is wrong is literally just keeping you from reaching your like getting through the gate, into what you're trying to get to do.
Yeah, that's good. And then Tish Harper, and we're just kind of, I mean, there's like a bunch of questions came in here pretty quickly, so I'm wanting to make sure that we hit them. Is it more important to upskill personality or skill set? Um, Personality, I don't know how we can define that. So, Tish, if you're watching, if you can help elaborate on the first part, unless you guys do have an answer for that, just kind of off the top.
I mean, personally, I think, it's maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, I constantly keep telling people if you want to get a job in this industry and you might not have the certs or the degree or whatever, network. I mean, if you get a connection somewhere, if you start making friends on Twitter or LinkedIn or I mean, heck, you can even do it on Facebook or, Instagram at that point. If you make these friends and you start off with that, obviously they're going to ask you, like, hey, what do you know? That's when you can start kind of selling your skills and everything to them. You can kind of go, hey, like this is some stuff that I've gone over and I've studied and everything before you even go through like an interview process. But getting that connection is golden. That's like the Willy Wonka golden ticket to get to the chocolate factory. I mean, if you have that, sometimes you can almost bypass the HR, what we call the HR firewall. I mean, I'm kind of a perfect example of that is I ended up networking with somebody that was already at the company and everything. And they were like, hey, I really like what I'm seeing on Twitter. I like the information that you're putting out there. I've seen your resume. Like you're what we want for our company. And I mean, he pretty much just told HR like, hey, this is the guy that we want to fill for a position. And you still have to talk to HR and everything about stuff because it's, the legalities of everything. But I didn't really deal with HR, and I just think that those connections are solid.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of networking and just like working with other people. But going back, I guess like maybe Tish might have been more also asking like what's more important, hard skills, soft skills. So I think especially like for someone that does consultancy work, um, you could be the best like practical technical tester, but if you can't communicate with not only like your team members but also anybody that you're like presenting a report to, um, if you can't like present those findings, then your work isn't necessarily worthless, but you're not getting that full impact of what you could if you were really good at communicating with somebody. So I definitely do think technical can get you a lot of the way, but the more personality and your soft skills can really make or break a lot of situations, especially when you're interviewing.
Well, and I'm going to tell a story too, real quick. And it was my uh, college professor, and he was talking to all of us one day about getting jobs and just in IT in general. And he said he sat down for an interview with somebody, and they just started asking him all these questions. They're just like, oh, like what's your favorite sport? What hobbies are you interested in? All this just random off the wall stuff, and it had nothing to do with tech at all. And at the very end of the interview, the interviewer goes, hey, do you have any questions for me? And he goes, yeah, why you didn't ask me one single thing about like what I know in regards to IT or anything. And he goes, because we can teach you that stuff. Like the technical stuff we can literally teach you. He goes, I need somebody with the personable skills to just talk. I need somebody that knows how to talk to people and relate to them, and somebody that's not going to talk down to them or anything like that. He goes, that's what I was looking for. And then he ended up actually getting the job because of that. So the technical skills, while it's nice to have them, if you get and I'll put this in air quotes, a good employer, they will worry about training you stuff later. That's what, again, the on the job training is. A lot of companies are so enamored with trying to find this turnkey employee that they bypass, again, they miss all these other opportunities of all these people that are way overqualified for the job, but because they don't actually have the certifications or the technical know-how right off the rip, they just go, nope, you're not for us. We need somebody that knows how to do all this other stuff right off the rip. And it's like, okay, well then you're going to be the one missing out in the end.
Yeah. No, and I think that's kind of, I mean, in terms of like going back to gatekeeping, I think HR can do a lot of gatekeeping
Oh, absolutely.
for people. It's like if you can get past that initial screening process with the HR and like actually talk to people on the team that you're going to be working on, um, you don't really need to like pass a technical test. It's like if you can just like talk to people like a person, then like I think you'd have the easiest time doing that than getting past the technical screeners a lot of like strictly HR managers would have.
Yeah, legit. And I mean, just like you guys said, HR can kind of do that gatekeeping almost in an, and I don't even think that HR really intends to do that. It's just like there's like corporate norms that they don't even realize like the impact of. I feel like maybe I'm giving them a bit too much credit here.
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think that they do it intentionally. I mean, they want to fill those positions, but it all goes back to, how many times do you see a job posting for all these absolutely ridiculous qualifications and requirements? And it's not, again, like that they're trying to prevent people from finding it. But I do think that HR, there's a disconnect between like your IT, your infosec teams, all these technical departments, and your HR. They go on and they start searching for similar job postings. They're like, oh, CISSP, GSEC, all this other stuff. Let me just grab that, copy and paste it over in ours and call it a day. And it's like, you can't do that. Talk to your IT groups. Talk to the people in there and figure out what it is that they are looking for. Because I can guarantee you, if they started doing that more often, you wouldn't have these weird, like the memes that go around of the job postings. You wouldn't have that anymore because you would have the communication.
Oh
Yeah, for real. I mean, so right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Parker.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's like you see the meme that it's like, oh, junior position requires 10 years of experience, a master's degree, or a PhD, and we're going to pay you like $30,000. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's a lot of HR, and I agree. I don't think they're doing it like intentionally to try and just like never get anybody in. But I think there's a big disconnect between the teams and the job description.
Yeah, I really should have written down because there was a kind of a question that popped into my head mid thread on this topic, and it literally just disappeared from my brain. You gotta love that. I think it was on soft skills and hard skills. I mean, just like Parker, you said, talking like a human, and I think meeting people where they are, because everybody's at varying levels of technical aptitude. And so if you talk to someone with like a high level of technical aptitude, like there's someone with a low aptitude, that'll send the wrong message. And similar, you won't send a message at all if you're trying to talk to someone with a low aptitude as if they have a high one, because it's all just going to fly over their head. So it's like, I feel like analogies are very helpful for me. Also, whenever I'm learning things, they're helpful for me, because then it's like it converts it to another thing that I do like also know. And then it just, I'll know, like the thread just kind of lines up a bit. So, but yeah, I feel like that's good. On I'm kind of curious to get your thought on this, on consulting. If you were, for people that are looking for jobs right now, I feel like definitely from what I've read and seen and heard from other people, like you get like a very wide swath of, I guess, inputs for whenever you're doing consulting, because you're seeing like what the client, what each client looks like, what each industry that you're working with looks like. What if you were to make an argument for the consulting route for people that are wanting to break into infosec, what would that argument be? And if maybe you don't want to make an argument for, you want to make an argument against it, what would that argument look like?
Yeah, no, I think consulting is a great route for people who are interested in pen testing and cybersecurity. It was like my first position, so I got to experience a really wide range of different like vulnerabilities and like different tool sets and different like underlying infrastructures for web apps. So some stuff's on Apache, some stuff's like React. So you just get like a really wide range of different exploits to look out for. It's not only just web, you could also do mobile or like network infrastructure testing. Some consultancies do like social engineering. So I think it does really give you the opportunity to kind of play around, find what you're interested in. Um, if you end up at a good company, they'll offer either in-house training or certifications you can go and attempt and then get reimbursed for, or they'll just pay for. Um, so I definitely think it is like a good route for a lot of people. Um, and then you could always transition into doing like internal testing for a company. I think both have their ups and downs for sure.
And then make, what's your pitch? I mean, you're blue team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're both. I'm transitioning from blue team to consulting. So, make, I guess, for blue team, what's the pitch for like just not doing consulting, but kind of staying more in like a traditional SOC?
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I've only been really in the position for a little bit, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe it can be boring. I mean, there's not like a whole lot of the reporting that you have to write on or anything. So I mean, like if you're wanting to maybe your hacking skills aren't the greatest, or whatever, that's when I would be like, okay, well, if you're still interested in the cybersecurity stuff, go the blue team route, because it's not quite as, you know, I guess in your face. And I feel like there's almost even more to learn. Like I feel like your red teaming is just strictly like attacking, whereas like with blue teaming, it's like, well, you have to understand how, this thing works, and then this thing works, and then this thing, and there's like all these like different policies that you're having to create, and you have to wonder like, how does that affect the rest of the company? Like if you're a red team, like you don't have to worry about that. You're just like, I just need to break in, and I have to use whatever means necessary to break in. So I guess, I mean, there's pros and cons to working them both. Like I said, I think the red team, the consulting, is definitely a little bit more of the attractive, thing, because it's always something different. Like you're always attacking a different network or a different mobile app or, API or whatever it is. But like with blue team, it's a lot of, you're researching different policies, you're researching this, you're researching that. It's a lot more, I feel like, grunt work, but it still can be very, very rewarding.
Yeah, and I kind of want to. I'm going to end up making a video on this. Once this transition is kind of finalized and I have some time to kind of digest this experience. From my current employer, it's been a great time. That sounds like it was a bad time. Just like you said, there are some boring times. It's a lot of grunt work, but it is really educational. You're going to
Oh
learn
yeah.
so much because it's just as you said. Attacking you do need to learn like the process that you're attacking, but blue team, like you have an opportunity to learn it at a much deeper level because you own the process.
Yeah.
You're not having to enumerate it and learn kind of from what you've enumerated. Like you actually own it. You can talk to the engineering team that runs it, and they'll walk you through it. And there's so many different like the governance, risk, compliance, engineering, all that stuff, right? I do want to clarify, like with consulting, that it doesn't necessarily even have to be red team. There are there can be blue team gigs, engineering gigs. It really it sounds like it really just kind of depends on the project that you're on, what the company itself focuses on. I've seen like some companies that they'll focus more on the red team. Seen some that are kind of balanced, some that focus more on the engineering side. So there's probably some like job enumeration on that end as well. But yeah. And then also, for anybody that is watching, we were talking about hiring. Eric Bellardo actually put like a ton of insight into how job postings are done. And he actually does that. So I'd say, pay attention to what he says.
Yeah, and I mean, and to totally clarify, I've never been part of the hiring process outside of being an employee that's been looking for the job. So I was always under the assumption that it was supposed to be your directors, your, VPs or whatever are sending to HR, hey, this is a job that we're looking to fill. And these are, maybe some of the requirements or whatever. And then HR goes and they try to, type in, okay, we're looking to fill information security analyst. Okay, let me Google information security analyst jobs and see what other companies have as their job descriptions, and then just copy and paste and throw it in there. And I told him, I said, I would be more than welcome to have a conversation with that. And even if there is a 95%, thing of where it's actually the hiring directors or whatever that are giving these job postings, somebody needs to inform them. Then there's more communication that needs to be done with your directors. I mean, if you're a director of cybersecurity and you're sending job postings out there asking for a CISSP for an entry level position, somebody needs to inform them that you can't even apply to have that certification until after 5 years in the industry. So education, communication, something needs to happen there, because otherwise again, there would be no memes if we had this type of communication.
Well, and it costs an arm and a leg to get the CISSP and like the OSC piece. So it's like it almost kind of boxes out a lot of people that can't afford that, without some sort of, help from the employer. And then you see some employers that don't actually even help, like, they still kind of put you in a bind where they're like, well, to progress in your career, you need to get these certifications, but we don't have a budget. So best of luck. It's like, well, what the heck?
I will tell you, the last company that I worked for, and I won't name them, but they were very much like that. I was wanting to go to school for IT at initially, and they, I told them, I said, oh, like, well, some of these classes might interfere with my work time, but like I can work after hours, whatever to make up that time. And they said, no, like your schooling has to work around our work schedule. And there was no tuition reimbursement. There's no certification reimbursement. And if you didn't have the funds to go to school or get a certification or whatever to better yourself, I mean, you're SOL. And that was a main reason why I left, because it was just like, you're not helping me better myself. I could literally be a valuable asset to your company if you just paid for some training. Like, I don't see why that's so hard. I mean, I understand maybe not having the budget for it, but I don't know. I still think that there's something that a company, especially the one of the size that I came from, that they could have done something.
Yeah. No, I lucked out. The company I was working for at the time paid for 2 of the 3 certs that I have,
Oh, wow.
which I really appreciate. It was, yeah, that was really great. I think it was like Shanna in the comments made a really good point. They like the high cost of a lot of trainings is definitely a form of gatekeeping. And it can be incredibly difficult for people that are trying to make that change in that maybe don't have the money to spend out of pocket to upskill. Um, can definitely be really hard, which is why I really appreciate. So like Heath Adams, the cyber mentor, has their academy, um, and
Big
each one of
fan.
their each
Hey,
one
and
of
then
their
I got an interview with
courses.
Heath if you want to check that out after this interview, by the way.
Oh, there you go. But each one of his courses is like $40. So I mean, you're not talking a huge chunk of change compared to maybe 400, 1,000 or more for some courses.
Yeah, I mean, it still gets you that knowledge that you don't, like you you can go for his PNPT certification, which is still a very cheap certification when compared to other industry leading certs, but you don't have to. You can go and take his courses that are cheap. I mean, how many times do you see him running free deals even on them? Obviously you want to try to support him if you can, because he's putting the time and effort to teach you. But yeah, it's like you can just go and get that knowledge. Even a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. And I think even Parker, you might even be able to attest to this too. Going back to the paid training, did you feel like a valued employee when they did that? Did you feel like, wow, this company really values me so much that they're willing to pay just to continue my learning and my learning process and everything? They want to keep me on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was nice to know that they wanted me to get better, to be able because you're not only bettering yourself, you become a better employee for the company that you're working for. So you would almost expect them to want to upskill you. I mean, there are always going to be people that argue that it's like, oh, well, if we upskill you, you'll just leave and find something better, and then we're out this money. But
Yeah.
that's the risk any company takes, because I mean, especially in our industry, several months experiences can be a driving factor for a lot of new jobs.
Well, and
Um,
I'd even be curious too. And I mean, and you can answer this, and I mean, anybody even in the chat can too. I'm actually kind of curious to see what Eric says. Um, the companies, if they invested in their employees, you wouldn't have some of the turnover rates that a lot of these companies have. And I think it's because they don't feel valued. It's like you for somebody's 10-year anniversary, they get a card and it's got the CEO's signature just stamped on the card. Like, it's not even like a person signing it, it's a stamp. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like companies overall need to spend more time doing stuff for their employees, and they won't have the turnover rates.
Yeah. No, and like kind of going back to it, I know you were saying how your company didn't even want to like make your education a priority. There are a lot of companies out like that exist like that. The one I happen to be working for not only paid for my courses, but then also let me on the clock take them,
Mhm.
which I mean is definitely, I can only imagine, kind of a um, an unusual, not the norm, which is unfortunate because, like I was saying, you'd want your employees to be the best they can be. Like, you're only going to be giving more in your, whether you're doing testing or blue team work, but you're only going to be giving better results.
Exactly.
Yeah, and and I feel like this is kind of true with individuals as well. Like, we really just want like a silver bullet solution. Like, we want to make like that one tweak that's actually going to like change everything. And like, how are we, going to be actually able to retain employees? Oh, well, if we can invest in their training and their upscale, or if they're in their upskilling, then they won't leave. Well, it's kind of, it goes hand in hand with, compensation for the role, upward mobility. Um, you know, w- out, with the amount of inflation we've seen in recent years, and then the not matching of salary, we're really all kind of taking pay cuts without even officially, in a negative dollar amount on paper, taking that pay cut. So, and that does that does lead to turnover. People, like, at some point, people have to, make that decision and move on, right? And that's one of those uncomfortable conversations. Who wants to have that with their employer, especially, whenever like your manager doesn't have like any, like, the pull to be able to do that? Like, they're probably feeling like they might believe the same thing that you do, but it's like in like a larger organization, realistically, how many changes can they make in that short amount of time? And by the time, they do make a change, you're probably well on to your next job.
Yeah.
So there's a question here from Jenny, and this is, or from Shiny Buttons, excuse me. This is another big question. It kind of made me chuckle, but an important one that I think, in the Twitter space, excuse me, Parker, you've been really pushing to kind of, explore and find these answers, because who the heck knows, right? But I think, we're kind of getting warmer, and we've talked about some of them, but how do we fix the gatekeeping crisis?
I think like kind of what the spaces are meant to do. I think the more people talk to each other, the more we highlight a lot of the issues a lot of people have, the more kind of power we as like individual employees will have, and the more that we have like a say, and we can kind of help each other kind of combat these different gatekeeping like tactics a lot of companies, I would like to say, unintentionally use, but you just never know. Um, yeah, I'd say definitely like just coming together as a community really can help.
Yeah, I will echo that. I think, the more we talk about it, the more we get people involved in talking about it, the more we get, communities to help people network further. It's only going to continue pushing that stuff to the side. You're not going to get the gatekeeping, because for every one person that sits back and says, "Oh, you have to do this, you have to do that," or you're never going to ever get into Infosec, you're going to have these communities and, these people that are gathering around. They're saying, "No, no, no. Well, we will help you. Don't listen to person A, B, and C over here that's telling you you can't. They're only showing you their limitations, not yours. So let's get you some knowledge. Let's show you how to do some stuff. We'll show you how to upskill yourself and get you in."
Yeah, and do you see this might kind of go? I mean, this is definitely for both of you guys and anybody in the chat. Do you see more of a willingness for employers to upskill employees in consulting or in a blue team? And I think that does kind of probably depend on the company. But I guess as this broad strokes, so this might not even be a good question. So feel free to just say, StudioSec, you're stupid. But you know,
You took the words right out of my mouth. No.
I say it to myself all the time. I'm like, man, I'm an idiot.
I'm gonna let Parker go here first. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
No, I'd say it definitely depends on the company. Like for consultancy, um, I think depending on what your company offers, you can definitely it'll depend because some companies might really be focused on one sort of different a service that they offer, um, and then some might have a lot more broad reach where they can kind of offer the different upskills. So I definitely would say, yeah, it definitely depends.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say the exact same thing. I think it depends on, the company you work for, the type of budget that they have towards, being able to do something like that. I mean, some of them want to, they'll literally tell you like, hey, we want to, we just don't have it in our budget to actually be able to do that. Which is fine, it's understandable, but um, yeah, I do think that it comes down to the type of company you have.
Yeah, I'd say budget can definitely be a big factor too, because you might be working for a smaller company, or it's like then
Hmm.
they just like they can't afford to upskill you. It's not that they don't want to, and they don't want to like lose you as the employee. Um, and so definitely, it's hard to be like, oh, as an employee, you just need to kind of accept that your company can't afford these things, because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, that's not like your fault. But it's definitely, I think, something that you should kind of consider. Um, so yeah, budget is definitely a difficult like topic, I think, for a lot of companies to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of one of those like uncomfortable conversations, but and it's kind of like with the. I mean, I love to tie it back to the Twitter Spaces because there are good conversations there, and I want more people to jump in on them because they're just fantastic. But the some of the best and most like helpful and productive conversations can be the very uh, uncomfortable and complicated ones, and especially talking about like employee retention and gatekeeping. A lot of it comes down to the budget. Um, companies they don't want to have to pay for the certification, so they're hoping that you'll come in with the certification already, and then you kind of address, hey, can you get me the certification? Well, now they have to budget for it, and that might be complicated. I don't know,
But
what
I
do you think?
Well, and I do agree to a certain extent. I mean, if a company wants you to have a specific cert, say for, hey, we're bringing you on as a junior pen tester, we kind of hoped that you would have, the OSCP or whatever. But sometimes it's almost better again to have like some on the job training. Like I still feel like that is just super valuable. I mean, how many times you hear people saying too, like, oh, you can, study for these particular certs or go for this degree, but you learn so much more when you're actually on the job learning stuff and getting hands-on with things. And I think that if I'm going to hire somebody in as a junior pen tester, and I might be trying to, fill that role fairly soon, maybe have them sit with some of the senior pen testers and have them shadow them and really, you know, allow them to sit there and ask questions and maybe, slide the keyboard over and go, okay, hey, this is on this line, I'm going to have you type this, and then I'm going to have you go here, and just kind of like giving them the on the job training, the shadowing, whatever you want to call it, to kind of help them bring them up to speed where you need them to be so then they can go off and do stuff on their own. I mean, I did it myself. I mean, when I got hired into the company I'm in now, I I had never had a blue team job before. I had never worked with some of the Microsoft, security suites. So what did I do? I sat down with somebody virtually, and he shared his screen and was kind of going through stuff. And then I was taking notes. And there were other times where I was sharing my screen and he's like, okay, let's go through these alerts. I took 2 days of showing you how to do stuff. Now you're going to show me what you've retained from those 2 days, and I learned, and now I'm able to go off and do stuff on my own without having any guidance. I can, go off and do other little projects that are handed to me. Like, people trust me to do that. That's the kind of stuff that you need.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of underestimate the power that shadowing and kind of like on the job training can have,
If it's done
which
properly.
if it's done properly. Yeah. Um, I definitely do think kind of even kind of bringing into the subject of work from home and like a lot of remote work. Um, I'll propose a question to you guys. Do you think it makes it harder to kind of bring people newer on? Do you think people are still getting the same experience for like shadowing or more of like initial onboarding for a lot of like either new hires or people with maybe a little less experience than most?
Do you want to go first?
I mean, yeah, like I said, I mean, for my company, I was very much given that opportunity of the on the job training, which I was very thankful for. Ask your question one more time.
Yeah. Do you think that like the remote work makes shadowing and on the job training a little bit more difficult than having someone maybe sitting right next to you, being able to quickly just like turn to you and be like, "Oh, these are my questions," or "How did you do that?" Um,
No. And here's my reason why. So we all have some form of, you know, audio communication with somebody, whether that's using a work cell phone that they've sent you. Some people use Cisco oh crap, what the heck was it called? Cisco Jabber, Microsoft Teams, like all of these applications have some sort of voice audio calling mechanism. You can use that to call. And I know too, because I've used both of them, you can share your screens. It might for some people seem like it's a little difficult in my experience, because I've done training both being somebody that's trained, been trained in person and now remote. And I will tell you that for my personal experience, it was the same. I got the same exact knowledge that I needed to be able to perform my job duties over both. I mean, like I said, if the training's done properly, if somebody goes over first 2 days or whatever, says, "Hey, I'm going to share my screen with you. I will show you while we're on a call exactly what it is that I'm doing. Take your notes." Then on the third or fourth day, I'm going to have you share your screen on a call. And that way you're the one doing it so that you retain it better. I'm going to do the exact same thing for somebody if I was training them in person. I'm going to have them sitting in a chair next to me as I'm sitting there on my computer going away saying, "Hey, yep, this is what I'm doing." And then on the third or fourth day, okay, we're going to go over to your desk. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say, "You need to go here. You need to go and do this." It's the same exact thing. It might look and feel a little bit different, but it is essentially the exact same thing.
no, I completely understand. Yeah, it makes a lot. I think yeah. No, I think that's like a good way if companies can like effectively implement that type of training. I definitely do see how it can easily replace or like make up for the type of training you might get in the office.
Well, and to
But
be totally fair too, I mean, some people, I almost want to say that the remote training can almost be better for some people, because having somebody watching over your shoulder physically as you're trying to do stuff can seem kind of intimidating. I know it is for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times at the place I worked before, we would have like clients and everything do like a walkthrough, you know, and so like the CEO is walking them through the building and showing them, oh, okay, this is our IT department, and this is our, you know, our computer operator or whatever, and he's doing this type of work day in and day out, and I'm standing there and they're all like, right, I've got like 5 or 6 people behind me, and the whole time I'm going, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake. I think if you do the remote stuff, it's like, okay, I'm in the comfort of my own home, and all I'm doing is I'm having one person that I know of watching my screen. And I think that makes it so much, like, it cuts down on people's anxiety.
That you know of. One person that you know of.
One person.
They're always watching. Yeah, you know, my whole like career. So like I graduated like after the pandemic started. My whole career, like my job, has been all remote. All the training was done remote. Everything remote. I feel like it really depends on the person and how people receive and give and communicate information. Just like you said, makeshift, like it inherently is the same. Like the message of information, or the medium of information transfer is different, but it's really, I mean, the information is hitting the destination and you're learning either way, or, you know, hopefully you're learning. I think if it impacts anything, I think it impacts team cohesion. That, and again, that maybe that is different team by team, people, you know, depending on the people. I've seen some arguments that I kind of get, where it's like there's just no substitute for like being together in person. But then again, like in this field, you know, do you need to be like in person all the time? You know, we can do it remote. So is that really like a primary you know, benefit, or is that like a secondary, even tertiary thing? I don't know. Like that's kind of, you know, still looking at that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, as someone who's like most of my jobs have been in person, so it was kind of an interesting transition starting a new job and then a couple months in uh, being sent home for remote work that was supposed to be a couple weeks, and then it's a couple years. It's okay. I thought it was a really interesting change, and then I started a new job completely starting remote. So it's definitely, I feel like at the beginning I lacked a bit of team cohesion and that kind of sense of being on a team. Um, but I think as time's gone on, uh, I've been able to kind of build that, and I think that happened for a lot of people. So I definitely think it was tough at the beginning, but as it kind of becomes the new norm, people are finding ways to make it easier.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people here know, and I'm sure somebody's gonna make a joke in the chat. I'm waiting for it. I'm a very social person. I love talking to people in person. I used to get yelled at for talking too much. So for me to work in solitary confinement here, it's difficult. I mean, I went from being able to walk around in an office building and walk over to people that had called me and they're like, "Oh, I need help." And I'm actually physically there to be able to talk to them and, you know, ask them about their day or whatever as I'm helping them through their issue. I don't get that same interaction. I mean, you know, I know I'm a part of this Infosec team and everything, but I mean, we are all scattered and I don't really get to sometimes talk to these guys too often. So it's just like, you know, I don't know. It for me it sucks. I mean, I do enjoy the ability to just work from home. I mean, I essentially just roll out of bed and hop straight into the chair and start working. And it's fantastic because I hated my 30-minute commute. But yeah, I mean, I definitely I miss being able to physically chat with people.
Yeah, and there's a question here that I think is certainly valid, talking about training, but talking more about like Zoom fatigue, Teams fatigue, you get it, just remote fatigue. I can definitely see that, especially, I mean, I'm introverted, so like I don't know. I've been talking to my wife about this, especially now that, I'm kind of switching, uh, and we'll see. It sounds kind of hybrid, but it's like I, I I don't. I like being by myself and at home. I don't want to say I don't like people, but I do enjoy being on my own. But then there's also a point where it's like I do kind of miss being, around people. What do you guys think?
I'll let you go, Parker.
Oh, well, sure. Um, so I started maybe a month or two back, kind of transitioning back into working in the office. Things started opening up. Um, so I was looking forward to meeting people and like having like lunches with people that I just don't live with. But so far, I'm the only person who's consistently back in the office. Uh, so now I just am not home all day, which is kind of nice also, because I think it really gave me the chance to kind of have a separation between like being at work and being at home, um, which I mean, for you, it might be a little difficult kind of separating the like home time from work time. Anybody who like works either in their like bedroom or maybe even in their living room. Um, I know my last job, it was in the living room, and so um, it's like, oh, 5 o'clock's here, time to like be done with work, and you kind of still feel like you're working, or just you're only in like one area the whole day. Um, Kind of it got to me a little bit, so I'm excited to be back in the office. Uh,
Yeah, I wish that I was ever going to be able to go back into the office, but with my position right now, like our office is over in Minnesota. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I'm not making the drive or the flight to a place that's colder than Michigan. You could forget it. So, but
Michigan and Minnesota are the same. Come on.
no, they are not. Minnesota starts getting snow. They've gotten snow back in like August. I was like, I'm still down in Florida. Get out of here. Um, but to Parker's comment about the separation from work and home, that's kind of what I'm currently dealing with. Is I spend 8 hours a day at this exact chair at this exact desk working, and then I'm at this exact chair at this exact desk playing games, chatting with people on Discord, doing podcasts, the whole 9 yards. It tends to, I mean, there's been some times where even just talking to somebody in the chat, I've grabbed my work keyboard and I'm just like, "Oop, okay, wrong one," and I, go to grab the correct one. Um, I'm actually currently in the process of trying to. I have another room just over on this other wall, and transferring all of my main bedroom stuff over there, but also getting a desk over there for work. So that it's like, okay, I'm in that room for 8 hours a day, and then I can get up and walk over here and sit down here and do podcasts and game and whatever. So that there is, it's just a different overall environment that I'm sitting in. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think whenever it comes to like keeping that like work personal time divide, it can be hard to institute that balance whenever you're working from home because like this is my office, it's also my recording studio, it's
Mhm.
also where I like play video games and watch football. So after a minute, it feels like I'm living in a submarine. And like our apartment's not too big, so we kind of are. But anyway, like if I'm going to an office, it's like at least like, I can like sit at this desk and not feel like I've been here forever. Yeah, I could take it, I could take work over to my living room or whatever, but it's like different whenever you have a space built literally for work, and then you just kind of deliberately leave it, I don't know.
Let me ask you guys a quick question here. So when you guys were, obviously you're still working from home. I'm working from home. Parker, I know you said you had done some work from home stuff. Did you ever get a feeling like I'm bored? I maybe I should hop on and stay later, or maybe hop on and just do some other work real quick just to kind of, maybe not some of the stuff that maybe I wanted to get done today that I was going to hold off until tomorrow. Okay, well, I'm sitting here binge watching YouTube for 3 hours. Maybe instead of doing that, I can jump on and maybe be a little bit more productive and get some stuff done. Have you guys ever had any experiences with that?
I'd say I've had the opposite of that. It's really tempting to not work when you're at home all day and you're like, oh, well, I can just like turn and be on my like gaming computer, or oh, I can run to the kitchen and make a snack. And then it's like, oh, well, I've been really unproductive today. Um, but no, I know what you mean. It's like, oh, well, I'm here. Maybe I could check a couple emails or reply to this, or spend a few more minutes doing like working on this project. It's definitely, I think, for a lot of people who don't have the like separated spaces, even in their home, can have a kind of a difficult time either like maintaining a whole work day without the interruptions, or kind of resisting the temptation to either work a bit more or work a little bit less.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of, I want to be careful, especially like this early in the career. I want to take the boundaries seriously. I don't want, to just kind of let an employer, walk all over like my free time and just kind of hand it over to them. I have like a personal like exception to that. It really just depends on the mission. If it's with an employer that like, and the mission is important's kind of a vague term, but it's like, such that you just got to do it. You got to do the work. Like I pulled like an all nighter with like my employer, I don't know, in like springtime or something like that, back in like January or February, something like that. I don't remember, sometime. And it wasn't, I want to say it was necessarily enjoyable, but like, had to do it. There's just no other, there's no way around it. Sometimes there's work to be like, that just has to get done. And like at the time I was in the engineering team, and that's kind of where you're going to get that. Let this be an ad for the engineering team. You might have to pull the occasional all nighter. Some things went wrong, but I don't know. I'd rather just kind of maintain some of those boundaries personally. And if the mission doesn't necessarily demand going over the 40 hours, then we'll do it tomorrow.
Now I got a follow-up question. So, and Parker kind of initiated this. So if you're working from home and you're, sitting here and you've got your work PC and everything, but then you also have your personal PC, do you guys ever like, I'll work for, hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, and then just take a slight mental break and jump on Twitter or Discord or do something else for like 5 minutes max, 5-10 minutes, and then go, okay, had a little bit of a break, jump back over, do something else, do something work related. Do you guys ever do anything like that? Or am I the oddball in this?
I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I have my fair share of mental breaks throughout the day. I think it makes it a little bit easier to kind of like do really maybe not intense, but like focused work. Deplete that kind of reserve, take a few minutes to kind of recharge, get up, maybe take a little bit of a walk, some fresh air even, and then kind of repeat, like rinse and repeat throughout the day. I think I've noticed like my quality of work has gotten better rather than just trying to like press on through for like 8 straight hours. I think that like that little bit of a mental break can be beneficial.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. Like I'll have like YouTube kind of running as background noise in the background. For like the more like, I guess, intense stuff, I'll turn that off and just put on some like lo-fi or whatever. But I agree. It's nice to kind of have that like 10 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes, to recharge the batteries and then kind of get your faculties collected all over again, and then, get back to hitting it for, 30, 45 minutes. And like you said, like the quality goes a bit up. It's like in the office, like you're not necessarily worried about like someone just passing by and being like, like you're not looking busy. So they're like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you're at home, you know yourself, and you know your ability to you know what you need to be able to get the work done. So you're not necessarily stressed out about that. It's nice to have that element taken away.
Yeah,
And Eric says I put his channel on in the background. That's exactly it. I just need to hear Eric Berlardo's voice. So that sounds weird. Anyway, I said that and I was like, what was that?
There's no edit button in this, man. It's live.
Oh no, yeah. And I'm keeping it live.
you got to support each other somehow.
Yeah, right. Hey, YouTube is it's one of those things. Watch time is fickle. Let me tell you that. But anyway, so we're kind of coming up on time to probably wrap this up. Parker, thank you so much again for jumping on. This has just been an absolute blast. For people that weren't there at the beginning, can you talk a little bit about Information Security Collective again for them? And then, when will the next Twitter Spaces be? What's some projects that you're working on there?
Yeah, so the Information Security Collective is a nonprofit. We're kind of still getting our feet beneath us. It's more or less a team of just me doing everything. But yeah, we're really focused on member-driven programs like mentorship, helping people get into different certifications or attend conferences. Really just trying to make the industry as a whole more inclusive and diverse, getting more people involved. I host Twitter Spaces typically every other Thursday. We're starting to try and implement maybe something to fill in that off week by highlighting more members of the community. So definitely keep an eye out. Hopefully we'll get one up this Thursday. Took off last week for my birthday, so trying to get just everything back up.
Well, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
everybody in the comments, put hashtag happy birthday. I don't know why hashtag, but hashtags are fun. So definitely do the hashtag. And then make Republic of Hackers. How's all that going?
It's going good. We are just kind of, I know we've got a meeting or something sometime soon here to kind of talk about, different things that we can do. And I'm actually kind of glad because Parker, I will probably be reaching out to you and seeing if there's anything that ROH can do to kind of help, the Information Security Collective out, because I think that we both have very similar goals and motives in regards to this industry. And I think that, we work better together and not separately. So I will be reaching out to you and we'll get something set up.
Sounds great.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to go ahead and close this up. So thank you guys again for joining. Definitely stick around in the back. And then for all of you joining, thank you so much for joining. This has been an absolutely excellent conversation. Thank you for, all the comments down there. Thank you for all the questions. Definitely be sure to join in next week. Give me one moment to stall so I can let you know who's joining. It'll be the XSS Rat. So definitely put that in your calendars. It'll be a great time. There's a part 1 of the interview already on the channel, so check it out. But thank you again for joining. And this has been the Cyber Monday show. Have a good one.